Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate your testimony today, and certainly reorganizations can eliminate inefficiencies, but they can also raise a lot of questions about values. But one thing I was really struck by is the new guidance that has been put out for evaluating both mid-level and senior personnel in the State Department that basically uses the word fidelity, essentially saying how loyal are you and how quickly do you align yourself, and I'll quote, completely align oneself and one team to the most current USG goals. You know, back in 1981, I was a State Department fellow in India in between 2 years in graduate school. I was later admitted to the Foreign Service, but I turned it down. I was working as a presidential fellow for Secretary Weinberger in the Department of Defense. But I was really struck at that time, the State Department officers said, look, we develop extraordinary expertise in the field on complicated issues around the world. We funnel that information to help the decision makers back in D.C. make decisions. What I see emphasized in this list of promotion criteria, there's not a single thing in it that says developing regional expertise, language expertise, knowledge of complex issues, informing and helping shape the dialogue in a responsible way. There's nothing like that. It's all about loyalty, implementing whatever DC says. Are we completely devaluing our Foreign Service officers for their development of expertise that can help enlighten our own policy agenda?
So thank you for that question, Senator. So the core precepts for promotion at the department were updated. The fidelity precept, which you just quoted, was replaced the DEI precept, but it calls for fidelity to the Constitution of the United States. It calls for fidelity to executing the president's policy priorities, which we're in the executive branch. The president stood before the American people and went from one end of this country to the other, saying what he wanted to do, and that policy agenda was ratified by the voters in November, and it's incumbent upon the career Foreign Service officers and the career Civil Service officers at the State Department, and indeed at every other executive branch department, to faithfully carry out what the president stood for before the American people. So the American people have confidence that when they go to the ballot booth and elect a president, that what they voted for will get implemented.
Okay, well, I will say that actually the criteria talk about how much you accentuate executive power under Article 2. And there is a huge debate going on now as we see ourselves slide into an authoritarian state, both the defunding of agencies, the firing of employees, the reorganizing without congressional direction are all factors assaulting the separation of powers, which is actually an assault on the Constitution of the United States. But I'm going to set that aside for the moment, because I'm concerned about the values represented in this reorganization. And I'll give you some example. Firing the consular fraud prevention in passport operations. Makes no sense to me that our value is to allow fraud in passports. Second of all, firing the leadership team for the coordinator for Afghan relocation efforts. This is firing the team that's standing up for the people who stood with us in Afghanistan, and now we are abandoning them. Abandoning our partners is not a value that I think our State Department should be promoting. Third, proceeding to terminate the personnel who were taking on the issue of Russian propaganda in Ukraine. I do not think promoting Russian propaganda is a value that our State Department should be promoting. Fourth, firing the experts on money laundering. Are you kidding me? That is now our strategy, is to make sure that money laundering is easier around the world, not to mention that in areas of fast-changing technology, experts in quantum technology and AI were terminated. And let's look at one other case here, firing the team that was working on war crimes committed by Russia and Ukraine. Our value is now that we don't care about war crimes. I don't think that's an American position. And finally, I'll note, firing the entire Bureau of Energy Resources, which carries on international energy policy energy is critical to the future of our economy and success in the world. So these are not values that are American values. This reorganization was, as my colleague Chris Coons noted, hastily planned, poorly coordinated, and is going to do real damage to the security and success of the United States of America. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.